All right, let's jump right in. Have you ever noticed how the same company, maybe even the same manager, can feel like a totally different beast from one year to the next? Well, today we're going to get into why that happens. We're going to explore the psychology of scarcity and abundance, and how the tides of the job market don't just shift our opportunities, they literally change how we act at work.
So picture this. It's a hot summer, jobs are everywhere, and there just aren't enough workers to fill them. This is the kind of stuff you start hearing on the ground. It's this feeling of, hey, we've got the power now. It's a real moment of reckoning. The whole dynamic is flipped, and workers aren't just looking for a job anymore. They're looking for respect, and they finally have the leverage to demand it.
And then, bam, just like that, the season changes. A brutal winter hits. There are hardly any jobs, and tons of people are desperate for work. And the whole psychology just shifts on a dime. This is the line you hear now. It's so dismissive, right? So blunt. It just lays the new power dynamic bare. Same manager, same company, completely different world.
Now, this whole story isn't really just about a construction site. It's actually a super powerful metaphor for pretty much any industry you can think of. Tech, healthcare, retail, you name it. It shines a light on a fundamental truth. When power shifts, it completely alters how we see and treat each other.
Okay, so let's break this down. In the summer of scarcity, you have a scarcity of workers. With jobs everywhere, good employees become this precious resource. Companies literally have to compete for them, which means being caring and treating people well isn't just nice, it's a business necessity. But then you get the winter of abundance. Now there's an abundance of workers. The whole script just flips. Applicants suddenly feel disposable, and all that raw power shifts right back to the employer. It's a cycle of feast and famine, not just for jobs, but for human dignity.
And this brings us to the absolute heart of the matter, the big ethical question in all of this. Is our dignity something that just goes up and down with the stock market? Is its value really determined by supply and demand? Or is it something that should be constant, like an anchor in the middle of an economic storm? Honestly, the answer to that question is what separates basic management from real leadership.
To really understand what's happening beneath the surface here, we need to look at some of the invisible forces at play. It really all comes down to this powerful, psychological game of exchange, of reciprocity, and, of course, respect.
A sociologist named Peter Blau actually gave us a great framework for this. It's called social exchange theory. And what he basically argued is that our relationships, all of them, are just a constant series of exchanges. At work, you're not just trading your time for a paycheck. No way. You're trading your effort for opportunity, your loyalty for a sense of security, your performance for respect. And the market? The market is what decides who has the better hand in that trade.
So here's the bottom line. When the market is in the employer's favor, they feel powerful, and they can get away with giving less in that social exchange. Less flexibility, less respect, you name it. But when the market flips and it favors the workers, they're the ones who feel powerful, and they can start demanding more. It's this invisible negotiation that's happening all the time.
But it's not just about who has the power. It's also about what all this pressure does to our brains. Scarcity, whether it's a scarcity of jobs or a scarcity of workers, it fundamentally changes how we think and the decisions we make.
This brings us to this really fascinating concept from two researchers, Mullainathan and Shafir. They call it the mental tunnel. See, when we feel any kind of scarcity, our brain gets laser-focused on the immediate problem, like paying this month's rent, or for a manager, just filling this week's open shifts. But that intense focus has a huge cost. We totally lose our long-term perspective. The worker takes a bad deal just to solve today's problem, and the manager makes a really short-sighted call just to save a few bucks.
And this ties perfectly into Daniel Kahneman's famous work on our two ways of thinking. Pressure literally shoves us into what he calls System 1. That's our fast, intuitive, emotional brain. So the manager under pressure, they instinctively squeeze the budget. The worker under pressure, they instinctively accept an unfair deal. Our more thoughtful, logical System 2, the part of our brain where fairness and long-term strategy live, it just gets totally pushed to the side.
So, if the market is always going crazy, and our own brains can be so easily swayed by pressure, what on earth is the solution? Well, the answer seems to be in building an ethical core, a set of principles that just don't change, no matter which way the economic winds are blowing.
Here are 6 principles for true leadership. First up, constant respect. Sounds simple, but it's totally non-negotiable. 2, fairness. Pay people what you owe them when you owe it to them. Don't exploit someone who's in a tough spot. 3, safety. This is never, ever up for debate. 4, training. Invest in your people, especially the ones who are struggling.
They are your future strength. 5. Human feedback. You correct people in private, but you recognize them in public. And you criticize the mistake, never the person. And number 6, long-term memory. Always remember that the tides will turn, but your reputation, that's forever.
And that last one, long-term memory, really brings us to the whole point of this. Because in the end, this isn't about short-term wins or who has the upper hand today. It's about the legacy you build. It's about the reputation that follows you through every single economic season, good or bad.
Think about it like this. The way you treat people when you have all the power, when there are 20 people waiting for that job, that is what they will remember when the tables inevitably turn. The loyalty you earn when times are good is the only thing that's going to sustain you when times get tough.
So it all comes down to this one simple question. This is the test. This is what separates a manager who just reacts to the market from a true leader who acts from a solid set of values. How do you behave when you're the one holding all the cards?
And that's really the bottom line, isn't it? Markets will go up, they'll come down. Crises will come and go. But our human worth, that doesn't change. True, lasting success isn't measured by what you build, but by whether you lifted everyone else up along the way. You just can't build something truly great on the backs of people you made feel small.